Welcome back to the Silent Hill 1 commentary. Are you ready for class, ladies and gentlemen? I know I am.
We never did confirm if we were ready for class in the last part, so
I didn't study, so no.
I don't think, none of us are.
I didn't study. What was supposed to be on the test?
Half day off, yay!
Can I borrow your notes, John?
Oh, you're one of those assholes.
Yep.
You show up to class.
Silent Hill honestly gave me the kind of feelings a survival horror hasn't given me since the first time I played Fatal Frame. And it's fitting enough because although Fatal Frame 1 is kind of a Resident Evil clone, Fatal Frame 2 feels a lot more like Silent Hill in terms of structure. I mean, you're in this small village and you go between buildings from area to area rather than having one large Japanese mansion to explore like in. Oh, hi. I thought it was another Grey Child, but no, this classroom's just more of the Shadow Children. Okay. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Fatal Frame 2.
Yeah, you know what? That locker room right there perfectly exemplifies what you just like, what?
What am I doing?
Fatal Frame 2 is it's a small village where you go between several smaller buildings rather than having one large building. Fatal Frame 1 is structured a lot more like Resident Evil 1, where you have a large mansion. It's not necessarily the East Wing, West Wing structure that Resident Evil used, but it's clear what they're going for. You have one big mansion, your end game is in the caverns beneath, it's the Alone in the Dark Resident Evil approach to designing a horror game.
Spooky house. Ooh.
Yeah, it's a house full of ghosts, really. Whereas Fatal Frame 2 is in this lost village that you wander into and can't get out of because it's magical and supernatural.
That's full of evil, creepy rituals that people are stupid for doing.
Well, evil, creepy rituals are kind of just the Fatal Frame thing. The story usually comes down to there was some shrine maiden sacrifice thing that was supposed to happen in the past, and personal feelings got in the way, and they didn't do it. And because they didn't do it, the gods or the spirits went crazy or something. And oh, hi, it's the old-fashioned boiler. This is totally a Shining reference. Although you wouldn't know that if you'd seen only the movie, because the Shining movie kind of left out the old-fashioned boiler that exploded the hotel in the end.
Well, the boiler's there, it's in one scene, but it doesn't bring any attention to it.
The movie and the book are very, very different, right? For
Yeah.
The Shining? Yeah.
Absolutely different. There is a more accurate adaptation. Unfortunately, it's kind of boring because it wasn't done well. But basically, the thing in The Shining was there's this old-fashioned boiler in the hotel that needs to be, meticulously maintained every day. Otherwise, it'll overheat and basically blow up the hotel. It's totally something that shouldn't be legal, but this is a hotel in the mountains in a really remote location, so obviously inspections aren't really a thing. And they probably just pulled the wool over the eyes of any inspectors that did come by maintaining it before they arrived. So, in any case, what winds up happening in the end is that possessed Jack forgets to deal with the boiler, and when he's about to kill the surviving people, one of them reminds him that he forgot to deal with the boiler. So he abandons trying to murder them to run back and, reset the boiler so it doesn't explode. He just barely doesn't make it. And the irony between the book and the movie is that possessed Jack dies in a fiery explosion in the book and freezes to death in the movie. Just a weird quirk of the adaptation there. But the boiler explosion is referenced itself in this movie. A lot of people think that that the Carrie influence is what caused the boiler explosion. That Alessa's psychic powers. Yeah, I haven't mentioned she has psychic powers. That's a thing.
Cool.
Alessa's psychic powers went haywire, Carrie style, and made the boiler explode. But no, it was just a reference to an old-fashioned boiler that exploded as a cover story for the fire that happened at Alessa's house. The fire was actually not given a clear cause in this game. Although in Silent Hill Origins, we find that it was actually part of the ritual um, that did whatever they did to Alessa. It's convoluted stuff, and best left half explained, in my honest opinion.
Silent Hill Origins was one of the Western-made ones, right?
Yeah, but the boiler explosion is noteworthy because even though we got the uncensored gray children in this version, for some awkward reason, there's a missing file in the end game section of the game that kind of makes a room pointless, since the only worthwhile thing in that room would have been that file and another file next to it that's sort of just for a subplot. The file's missing in the American version. I edit in some footage of the UK release, so we will see that file in this playthrough. But the file kind of explains what happened to Alessa, so it's important plot details. I don't think it was censorship exactly. I just think they forgot to include it in this build of the game. Honestly. So
It wouldn't
yeah.
be the first time, because you guys said that Capcom forgot to include a certain F&B twice. So
Yeah, they
nothing
forgot.
surprises me anymore.
They forgot to add the uncensored version of the Resident Evil opening to the director's cut, which advertises having the uncensored FMV on the back of the box. So yeah, oops.
Well, they did it twice though, because there's not only the intro, but the first zombie that we run into.
Yeah, there's also the scene where the zombie in the original uncensored version of the game, he's not just chewing on the corpse off screen. You actually see the corpse's head fall off, which is carried over into the remake. Actually, that's you get to see his head plop onto the ground. It's the camera angle makes it a little ambiguous as to whether or not he's been flat out decapitated, but you do see his head flop onto the ground.
Like half of his face eaten off too.
Yeah. So
did they ever release those in like a different release of the director's cut, or as a bonus materials in a different game?
No.
I don't believe so. You basically need to patch them into an emulated version or look them up on YouTube.
Yeah, but how did they get them in the first place? Is more what I'm asking.
Oh well.
The Japanese version, I'd imagine.
Oh, the Japanese version had it. Okay.
Interestingly, the horribly misspelled newspaper clip from the intro is also exclusive to the censored version. There was pictures, I think, of the murders in the uncensored version. So in general,
grammar
just
is offensive.
In general, just a better opening. Also in color, but preference as to whether or not you believe that the black and white helps the thing. So.
Well, one question I wanted to ask you, actually, since part one, but how did you discover Silent Hill? Like, what made you get into the series?
Oh, well, that's interesting. It actually harkens back to the days of gaming magazines. My first encounter with Silent Hill was in one of those game guides that magazines occasionally had, much like the Final Fantasy Anthology guide that I remember so fondly. And Parasite Eve and Parasite Eve 2. So I didn't have disposable income. Most of my experience with horror games at that time was either I watched my stepfather play one, and I think I definitely remember him briefly playing Silent Hill, although when I asked him about it about a year ago when I recorded this, he didn't remember, so I could be misremembering that. In any case, I definitely remember reading about Silent Hill in a guide, and I definitely remember seeing it being played by someone else at some point. However, I didn't pick it up until I got a PlayStation 3 and downloaded it and left it sitting on my hard drive for years until I got Silent Hill 2 and 3 donated to me. Because I kind of had this misconception of Silent Hill as just being another Resident Evil game, which is really not doing it enough credit. It's very unique in its approach, especially for the time. So, yeah.
Okay, so obviously Silent Hill cannot play Moonlight Sonata. That'd be too obvious, so I'm willing to think that Harry Mason plays the entertainer.
No, you do the 3 double notes to open the Batcave.
Okay, this is actually a puzzle. There are certain keys that play notes, that play noises. There are certain keys that play clicks. Some of them,
Chopsticks and chopsticks and chopsticks and chopsticks and
Some-
chopsticks and chopsticks and
some,
chopsticks, chop chop.
some of them are black and some of them are white and some of them are bloody. And basically, okay, the riddle on the wall tells you what order to play the keys in based on the birds. Are they black birds or are they white birds? How far ahead or behind are they in the flying formation? And what order do they show up in the riddle in? So, yeah, you actually need to solve the riddle to find the order that you're supposed to play the keys in to open the... I kind of...
And it turns out the answer is GameFAQs.
Well, that's...
I hate, you see, especially nowadays, I hate having to look up stuff in a guide. Like, there was a time, I'd say, probably when I was a teenager, where I just did not care. If I was stuck, I'd look up a guide, and I would not feel bad about it in the slightest. Nowadays, I hate looking up stuff in a guide, because for one, the game beats me if I need to look up a guide. So there's that.
You're
but
admitting
also,
defeat.
But also, I feel like I'm not doing it right, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not respecting the game enough to... So that's actually, usually I only look it up when I'm just done with the game, and, it's just like, okay, I need to see the end, I don't care anymore,
Yeah, I was going to say, it varies between, I want to figure it out, versus, okay, the game's not doing a good enough job explaining to me what I'm supposed to even be doing.
Okay, so the awkward pause there was actually me looking it up, because I realized I had mixed up the order of the keys. And that was my bad. I was just being silly. I solved this puzzle properly the first time I played, but I mixed up the exact order that a few of the keys go in when I was trying to do the solution here. So there it is. Why I couldn't just drag up a chair and pull that out of the wall, I don't know. But
They didn't program you to be able to do it.
It's like that one glass case in Resident Evil where you can't just break it like she does in the book.
It's never quite that simple.
And yeah, this is me rereading the puzzle so that I can figure out what it was I mixed up.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Okay. Well.
How
that was a
many of
puzzle.
the, like you said that the best comparison for these are like dungeons. How many are there in the game? Because you've been in here for a pretty good while, actually.
The two major ones in Silent Hill 1 are the school and the hospital, and then there's the final area, which is sort of an amalgamation of the school and the hospital. There's not as much dungeon to go through in Silent Hill 1, unfortunately.
So other games make that more of a thing.
Yeah, it's more prominent. It's more prominent in Silent Hill 2, and like I said, Silent Hill 3 is basically nothing but. So it's the best aspect of these games. And Silent Hill 4, well, its approach is rather, it has several secluded, separate areas that you access through a hole in the wall of your room, because you're locked in by some demon chain, and, well, nobody can hear you from outside. It's an interesting setup, I'll say that. So I guess you could say Silent Hill 4 was also only the dungeons, but the way the gameplay and exploration is handled in Silent Hill 4 is different than Silent Hills 1 through 3, and in many ways inferior, although it does have interesting ideas. It's just really didn't stick the landing, you know?
Hey, it actually sounds like there's actual music being played.
Yeah. Well,
Where's this much set to Kindergarten Cop? Jesus.
the thing about music in Silent Hill 1 especially is that its approach to music is kind of cacophony of noise. It has this sort of really industrial mechanical feeling to it, especially in the Otherworld, which is all metal grating and rust everywhere. It's unique, and it really does work
Yeah, Yamaoka has a very particular way he goes about doing the soundtracks for these games.
Has he done any other series or just mainly Silent Hill?
I'd have to look it up. I really only know him from Silent Hill stuff.
Okay.
Silent Hill uses ambience and atmosphere very well, but when it does use its music, it also plays into the atmosphere with that as well. It's one of the examples of how to do this kind of thing right, you know, rather than just doing it because, well, some gaming critics said noises in the background in place of music was atmospheric.
I think it could work it could work both ways if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, it can work both ways, and the thing about Silent Hill is it does do it both ways in alternate areas.
Because to me, a good example of a horror game having constant background noises or music, as far as I'm aware, is Resident Evil 2. Because I think that soundtrack is
Yeah, of
really
course.
enhances
Of course,
the
the other
atmosphere.
thing about Silent Hill's relative lack of music is that it's kind of a necessary thing when you consider the radio has to be playing static at you.
Oh yeah.
So when
and
it,
you don't want the alarm to be anything else but static.
yeah, so when it's quiet, you know you're relatively safe.
You see, actually, that. Okay, here's the thing, because I normally associate, at least in video games, quiet with being like tense, aka like things are too quiet, I'm not safe. So that's it's interesting in that it's different in that way. I suppose, you know.
Well, that's basically Silent Hill summarized. It's interesting because it's different.
Yeah.
The originality on display in this game it's the kind of thing you really. It's one of those cases like Parasite Eve, where it's the kind of experimentation you only really see in indie titles these days. Well, most of the time. Anyway, this tunnel, which is a straight line, leads us. Wait for it.
Wait for it.
Oh, this tension's building, man. This better be good.
Wait.
Outside.
Back where we started. The same door we came in. Oh god.
Bum
Dun
bum.
dun
Boom!
dun.
Thank you for playing the demo of Silent Hill 1. Look forward to the full release in a couple months' time.
Now this is Silent Hill's gimmick. There are two worlds. The fog world and the Otherworld, or the hell world as it's sometimes informally
The
called.
theme to the dark world. The theme to the dark world.
Remember that symbol because it's important in Silent Hill 3.
The Illuminati.
Or at least they make you think it's important in Silent Hill 3 and then you realize it's not. It's I think it's called the Seal of Metatron. And
Megatron.
Basically what's going on in the background here is that Alessa is going around the town, placing this seal in specific locations around. Her goal is to wipe Silent Hill off the fucking map. Which,
Probably
you
for
know,
the
So
better.
she's the good guy in this situation, actually.
yes, she is. And, well, you sort of get tricked into thinking that what she's doing is bad, so you're trying to prevent her from doing it for part of the game. It's one of those things where you wind up helping the bad guy until the big twist at the end. Oh, damn it.
You just kind of stood there.
A lot of people like the dizzying effect of this camera. Me,
Fuck
it just makes it hard for me to fight things. Ugh.
Yeah, get off me, you whiny kid. Bonk.
If you hit them just so and they're grouped up in front of you, you can like hit both enemies with a single swing.
Also get them in relatively small stun lock.
Yeah.
Little bit, yeah.
Now, Melee unfortunately is a one-trick kind of deal in number one, but Resident Evil 3, not Resident Evil 3, Silent Hill 3, has a certain mechanic that you are probably familiar with, John. In fact, you are also familiar with it, Ryan. Ted, I don't know if you've played Resident Evil 7, but you know the parry
Nope.
mechanic in that game. The blocking,
Yeah.
the blocking ability is ripped wholesale from Silent Hill 3. It is the exact mechanic Heather Mason uses in her melee combat. Right down to her block animation with a handgun being, I'm going to hold up both my hands and hope for the best.
Yeah. You got a chainsaw? Well, I got my hands. Come on.
Don't worry, Ethan from Resident Evil Swimming just put his hand back on.
Yeah, you just sew it back on.
Yeah.
And just occasionally falls off.
It's the same effect too. Rather than nullifying damage, you just suffer reducer damage if you successfully block.
How does that work against a chainsaw?
I don't know, but it's the same mechanic. And yeah. So yeah, they ripped off, referenced, or otherwise took something from every single one of the first 3 Silent Hill games. So I'm impressed. It's like they did it on purpose. In fact, I'm pretty sure they did.
Convenient, a stress ball, just what I need.
So I know that
that's
Silent
super happy
Hills,
fun ball.
like people were excited just because of the
names attached.
the names
mostly.
to it, because Silent Hill had not had what I would consider a big, well-received game in a number of years when that was announced. Because Silent Hills, that was like 2013 or
Yeah,
so, wasn't it?
The previous 3 sequels for Silent Hill were 4, which is polarizing as fuck, and then there's Homecoming, which is, well, people like the story. A lot of people like the whole Shepherd family cult stuff, but the gameplay is, and they overdid, and they were really unsubtle about slipping in Pyramid Head for no reason and all that kind of stuff, and the sexy nurses for no reason as well. Just iconic imagery everywhere, which is not what Silent Hill is about. It's kind of that Other
Completely
M problem
missing
where they
the idea of the point.
yeah, where they found a reason to bring back a lot of Super Metroid enemies instead of making new ones like Prime did. Downpour, on the other hand, has the bones and some of the meat of a legitimately good Silent Hill game, but it's a broken mess. It's the Sonic 06 of the series. It was badly optimized, glitches all over the place, that kind of thing.
Stand on walls.
Well, I don't think it goes quite that bad, but it's.
You don't know that.
I should say it was the Silent Hill. It was the Sonic 06 of the series. It has been patched and relatively repaired. So if you played it at launch, you got by far the worst experience. Hey, look! It's a card key.
Card key.
Or a key card.
This is not a key. It is a picture of a key.
In the middle of this desolate, rusty, rotting hellscape, we find a visual pun in bright yellow. This series is great. It's a key card.
I just want Bowser to just pop out of nowhere through the wall once you pick it up, and he just honks his nose and walks off.
Well, considering that if we're actually in hell right now, you should be expecting to see these things all over the place, considering how often Doom Guy deals
I mean,
with them.
Ted, did they outsource you to design this part of the game or what?
I actually have not been on top of my pun game lately, which is why I tried extra hard when we were doing Resident Evil the other day. But today's Monday, and I can't be asked to come up with puns right now. So I'm sorry if I'm not meeting my quota at the moment. So
I hate Mondays. Hey, little child. Whack.
The melee weapons in Silent Hill 1 were really making me miss the melee weapons in Silent Hill 3, though. Because in this one you have the kitchen knife, and then you have the pipe, and then you have the axe, which is basically a pickaxe, which functions exactly like the pipe, except better. So, yeah, you just get better weapons as you go through.
do you get to keep all of the weapons on you at the same time, or do you have to switch them out?
Unlimited inventory, but that just means that the unused older melee weapons go unused and just take up space on your menu.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
In Silent Hill 3, you actually have a fairly diverse set of weaponry, though. You have, the long bludgeoning weapon from early game, of course, and you have the knife, but you also have a taser, which has battery charges. You have, and the taser is actually really effective because it knocks the enemy down right away. So you can either use it to get in some good hits with another weapon, or you can use it to run past them. You also have the katana, as I mentioned before, and the giant-ass maul. And then, when you get to the extra weapons, things get really crazy. There's a lightsaber.
Does
That's
it
right, I do remember.
Does it one-shot everything?
I don't know if it one-shots everything. I didn't
Oh.
actually play through the game with it. The unlockables in Silent Hill 3 are amazing. There's a transformation item that puts you into a magical girl costume. And
Yeah,
Oh,
you have
man, that's
You
amazing.
have sexy beam.
yeah,
Like
and the
you
laser that
literally
comes
shoot
with it. Yeah.
lasers out of. I don't know if it's shoot lasers out of your eyes or anything like that, but
I think
it
it's
is
from
something
your
that
like faceplate or something.
you're something like that. Either way, it exists in the game, and that
Every
is
time
amazing.
you activate the magical girl transformation, there's a Sailor Moon transformation FMV that plays.
That's the
Yeah,
best.
look it up when you get the chance, because it's like this is ridiculous, but
This is a
It's
horror
great.
game.
Okay, for all the serious stuff that goes on in your first playthrough, when it comes to replay value, Silent Hill does not shy away from just going balls out mad with crazy stuff.
I think that's
So-
actually a good thing, because if you're playing it again, it might not be as scary the second time around. So adding in the humor value, I think, adds to the game's
Yeah,
charm.
yeah, you're coming back to this game to have fun, so just have fun.
Yeah.
And
Basically.
if you want to play the game all serious, like you can just start a straight up new game.
Yeah.
So it's a good system. Silent Hill 2 and 3 are both really good about replay value. More so Silent Hill 2's Director's Cut Edition, which I think is the version you'll be getting if you're buying it at all. I'm not sure if we ever got the original edition in America, actually.
There's a lot of instances like that for games where they just didn't, and it's not even just PS2 era. Like that's the most recent example I can think of off the top of my head is Bravely Default, where we got the updated version of that game too, with like the ability to turn off random encounters.
Yeah,
and
Final
stuff like
Final
that.
Fantasy 7 is also the same deal.
Oh, Final Fantasy 7 had.
Yeah, we got an updated version. The super bosses are the giveaway, because the original version didn't have Ruby or Emerald weapon.
Okay.
There were some other miscellaneous changes too. They still didn't fix the magic defense glitch until the PC version, though.
Wait, does
Diamond Weapon-
does Magic Defense not do anything?
It doesn't do anything. No, everything goes to the regular
honestly-
defense stat.
What
As
is
far
it
as
with Final
programming.
Fantasy games and
I was
stuff
gonna
just
say
not
it's,
working?
I was gonna say it's par for the course for Final Fantasy not working with some stats not working, but no, the Diamond Weapon fight was also not in the Japanese version of the game.
Oh,
either.
that too. Yeah, there's that as well. I think it was just Ultimate Weapon, right?
Yeah, just Ultimate Weapon.
Yeah. So, in any case, the magic defense glitch doesn't do anything in the PS1 release, which is the major argument for getting the PS4 or Steam version.
I know it's grossly off topic at this point, and but I hope like 30 years from now when Remake finally comes out, like we
Wow, that's
actually-
generous, John.
Because I know, right? I thought 31 was pushing it, but I'm
Launch
actually
title for the
hoping
PS9.
we actually fight like the Sapphire weapon, the thing that gets its face nuked off in the Junin canon sequence.
That would be cool.
Or at least fight a zombie version of it. Well, what does Harry think?
He's too busy playing with the muggles,
He
Yeah.
probably thinks nothing interesting because all of his...
Harry strikes me more of a Dragon Quest kind of guy.
No, what he thinks is nothing unusual, which is his answer to everything if you examine things in the background. His daughter has so much personality when he examines things in the background, but Harry Mason is just a plank of wood.
There's no dog here.
In fact, he might be the same plank of wood that James Sunderland uses to kill monsters.
Okay, so now you realize what a Silent Hill 2 mod where the plank of wood is just a model of Harry and you just swing around.